Alright, on today's episode, we had Bear come on. Bear is a men's coach, which he does a lot of work in the men's space, which is phenomenal. We had a fantastic chat about, I guess, men's work and the beneficials of it, and many different aspects of, I guess, masculine, and he got into his story as well, which was quite fascinating. I will link up all this stuff down below, so make sure you check it all out. And before we jump in, also go to mitchellcrocker.com, check out all the latest podcasts, all my programs and stuff are up on there. And then also two coming out soon, keep your eye out. I do have workshops and that coming out, so it'll be called Free the Body, Free the Mind. But other than that, hope you enjoyed today's episode, and yeah, let's get into it.
Welcome to the show, Bear. How are you today?
Yeah, thanks, Mitchell. Really good. Feeling it's a bit rainy down here in the Gold Coast, but it's nice and warm inside, so feeling good.
Yeah, it's good to hear, man. It's the same up here with the sunny coast, but it's a bit cooler. I'm actually a bit cold inside at the moment, but it's part of the weather. It's actually not bad weather considering. Nice and chilled.
Yeah, it's good for a change, and we live down by the beach, and we go swimming every day, so the water's getting cooler as well. That summer feeling is starting to change itself as well, I guess. So, yeah.
Yeah, definitely noticing that as well. So, I'll start off, man. I'll get you to, explain your story, what you're about, and then we'll dive in from there because I think there's a few things we could dive down into in this episode.
Yeah, cool. So my name's Bear Nothing, and I'm from New Zealand, and I am 49 years old. I'm from Māori descent. My mother is Māori, and my father is German, and so I've got that mix. And she's from the North Island, and I was, our tribe is called Ngāti Pro, and we're from a place called Gisborne in the North Island, New Zealand. And my father is from the South Island, but he came over from Germany very young, and he lived in the South Island. That's where my mother met him, and that's where I was born. So when I connect and tell people where I'm from, I say my Māori side are from Hicks Bay and Gisborne, because then it's like as the years have gone on in my life and I've connected with my culture, I used to always call myself, I'm from Nelson, South Island, but as I've connected with who I am, my culture is, obviously all of a sudden for me, it's not where I was born from is the most important thing. It's where my roots come from. And so my roots come from the north, and that's my mother's side. So that's good. So I guess the next piece is my mother. If we talk about my mother, she was the oldest of 16 children, and she was brought up in really harsh times, and her father was really cruel. A lot of the men in her life were cruel, and so she had to look after the kids, and there was a lot of stuff going on there for her to have the beliefs that her own kind, which are Māori, especially men, weren't safe. And I guess I'm getting to the point where I grew up, and she moved away from that and took me away as an only child to live in a city away from my own kind. And that was her bringing up for safety, because Māori men equaled to her not safe, cruel and bad, which is not true. And it's just her belief. So she went out with Pākehā partners, white men, feeling it was safer, but they still were mongrels and cruel and violent. So that's where she couldn't let that go, because she was modelled I'm actually safe having a violent partner, because my Nana, her mother, had a violent partner, and Nana's mum had a violent partner. So it went down the lines in our ancestry.
Yeah, I was going to say I do relate to that bit a lot, and yeah, I've seen it in my family quite a bit as well.
100%. And in the story, I'll tell you, I was an only child, but my mother had, to my father, when they first met, she had another baby, and that's when they split up when I was 3, because my father didn't believe it was hers, and that was my sister. And mum had to, all of a sudden, she was a single mum, and she had postnatal depression, and she adopted Amber. And later on, pretty much the next day, Amber was gone. It happened straight away, and she didn't realise what she'd done, and it was already done. So all of my life as a child, I think it was 8 years old, she told me that I had a sister, and she went to my school, and she was 3 years younger. And also all my school life, I went to the same school as my adopted sister, and was told that, it's not my place to say anything until she's 18 years old. So I looked out for her all my life, and later on, it's quite funny, because when she was 18, she got told about me, and and when we first spoke for the first time, she said, "I always thought you had the hots for me," like, because I was the older kid at school. And I said, "I did. I loved you, right?" And she's like, "Yeah, I get it now." So that was pretty funny, and so we get on really well now. We're really close, and she's really close with her real mum, my mum, and her kids knew my kids growing up and all that sort of stuff. So I guess if we go back to my mother having her beliefs of Māori men, and then I got brought up in the city, and I got brought up not around my own culture. Yeah, so I was good at sports and all these things, and not until later on in life, like throughout my life, I would see the haka and all these few things going on in my life, as I get older, and I'd be like, people would say, "Oh, do you know the language?" And I'd be like, nah, I don't know it. I'm not, yeah. And it didn't bother me really. And I lived in Australia all my life. And then one day, 5 years ago, within my men's work, and things started to tick in me and click, and I started to be aware of my culture. And now I bring my culture to my men's work and my men's programs, and connected to the ancestral twine that is in all of us. So that's kind of who I am now, and I got there eventually, and that's okay, because before all that was my apprenticeship to get here, and I'm 100% okay with that. So
yeah, which is all a part of learning, I guess, as well. And it's like, I guess it's a bit similar with me, because I've only just started to, I guess, connect in with men as well, and then started to get help and guidance from men, and started to go to men's group, because I kind of grew up in, I guess, like, I didn't have a positive male role model, as most of mum's partners weren't a great fit for her, or weren't doing the right things, I should say. So that I've had this bad aspect of men, so it's made it harder for me to connect in with men. And I've always seemed to gravitate to, I guess, more female leaders. And now I'm starting to gravitate to more men leaders. And I'm starting to realize there's so much more power in I guess, men to men connection. And especially like when you want to step into more your masculinity.
Yeah, great. That's yeah. I think I remember having a little chat here one time, Mitchell, and yeah, I really hear your backstory. I can, without knowing it, I can imagine it from what you've just said, and yeah, 100%. Like there is so much power and vulnerability in men being around men, and we say the power and vulnerability, two opposite things, but really they're not, because when I'm in my vulnerability, I'm in really my true power. When I'm soft, nurturing, that is, as a man, that is my true power. and that allows other people to be vulnerable and nurturing and soft, other men especially. So I mean, I love your journey ahead, knowing that and connecting with more men. What comes up for you?
Yeah, it's definitely a great one. And yeah, I guess well, my main question would be because a lot of, I guess, men shy away from men's group or just only men's group. So I guess, would you say the importance of connecting in with men and being vulnerable around men are?
Yeah, 100%. I think it's I've seen it. I think it's the backbone of growth, emotional growth. I come from a place of not trusting men in my life, and feeling as a child, feeling abandoned, and a lot of it was from men, and therefore not trusting, growing up to not trusting them, and really it's about I learned I didn't trust myself and love myself, and that's the work. But once I started to figure that out, it was all about me, and not what I thought as a child. Because what I make up as a child and I model is not true, because I only make things up in my mind. And as a child, my dad did love me and he didn't leave me. It's like he's got his own life and pressures. But as a child, all I think is like, my frigging dad left me. He doesn't love me.
Yeah.
I must be unlovable. And until I can grow up and realize and do the work, I go, that's not true. My dad does love me and did love me. He's just doing the best he could. And then I can change my awareness and start to love myself. So when I started to do that, then I started to really inside start trusting men and loving men and trusting myself and loving myself. So hence, I've been in men's groups for 15 years. And, the last, probably only the last 7 years have I really solidly trusted and really feel, embody what it is to be sitting around men and hear their stories and share my own stories and be heard and learn the warrior communication and learn to listen and to not talk, at the right times and all these great things that men teach, in these spaces and what we can learn sitting in there. So I've done a lot of years sitting in there. I've done a lot of years stuffing up, coming back to circles, going away, living my life, being pissed off with nothing's working, going back, doing the cycle of bad habits and behaviours, and then going back to circle. So what I've been talking about then is what's a familiar thing of what I was just saying is I would always go back, and they were always there. The circle never left me. The circle never pushed me out and shunned me for being wrong or shunned me for going back to alcoholism or drug addiction or sex addiction. They always open doors. Hey, brother, sit down. How are you? Great to see you. No judgments. That's the peace. I'm not judged, and I can just get back into what my journey is, or whatever it is. So
Yeah, I love that bit because it's something I guess as a human species we all need is that that space that we can go to and feel not judge and just be human.
yeah,
And that's the best thing with these kinds of men's group as well, is that we can be seen. I've went to one on Monday and this beautiful thing came up for this man, and it was cool to see he was able to be seen in that moment for what has happened in the past, for example, and just be able to sit there and then have that space held for you, because that's something we all desire as human beings, is just to be heard and held. And that's what the best thing that these groups create. And then also you get the masculine bond as well.
yeah, definitely. There's so much goodness in the circle, and creating the safe container, having having structure is really important as well. Safe to feel safe. I must have some structure. It's great to have elder energy in there. It's great to have someone leading it. all of the pieces, which is really like, if we go back, it's tribe. Every Monday night you say you go to a men's group, you go to your tribe, and you'll have an elder in there, you'll have some younger guys, or you'll have, this and that. And not everyone's perfect. Everyone's broken to some extent, and it's all welcome. And what I also love to see and know is that I see many men over the years that feel they're so broken, the problem is their problem, and no one else is as bad as them in the world. And they go to a men's group for the first time, and they hear the guy next to them, and his story is 10 times worse in their mind. And they're like, oh, fuck, I feel really good. Like, your life is worse than mine, in a sense. And really deeper than that is, I don't feel alone. That's a piece where men can really jump together and not feel alone, because our problems are our problems, and we've all got them. It's just that when I isolate myself in my own relationship and I don't talk, that problem just becomes my problem. And then it festers, and then it causes all kinds of problems. Physical sickness, mental sickness, and sickness for people outside myself when my mouth opens.
Because it just projects out straight away.
Yeah.
And yeah, you do see that a lot. And I love how you say that too, because it's like going to different groups as well, especially ones that hold space, is that you get to hear other people's stories. And then you realize, hey, I'm not the only one going through this. There's other people, because our own heads will tell us when we're going through a problem that it's only our problem. We're the only ones in the world going through it. But then you start talking to other people, and you kind of realize, hey, I'm not the only one going through this. And this is why I think humans relate so much to stories.
Yeah, 100%. So, stories were the very first portal for learnings. Like, we sat somewhere along the line, with whatever communication was the very first communication, even if there was no language. The first caveman, they sat down even before there was fire, before lightning lit, and they figured it out. They sat in front of each other, and maybe they sat in a circle, and they just went, in action. I killed that thing like this. And then everyone laughed, like, whoa, I killed it like this, and there's a story, and they're all like, oh, that's great. So it's all story, everything's story in our lives, and that's why we learn. Well, I won't say, but this is from my own experience, is that I learn better when someone teaches me about something and they throw a story in about it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, great. I can really. And where does that come from? It comes from me being a kid, listening to my granddad telling me stories, and my mum and my uncles. And because somewhere in my psyche, I know what a story is, and I know how to go, oh, cool, I'm ready for a good story, yeah? And before that, in ancestral twine again, we are all bound by storytelling. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, and with stories as well, it also like makes you feel like that you're there as well, a part of the story when someone's telling a story. And with being at one of your events, when you're telling the story, and it's just like you feel a part of it as well, which is like, that's like the best thing, is being the part of the story. And this is how you remember what was going on through the story, and you pick up bits and pieces.
Yeah, 100%. Like on Sunday morning, this Sunday morning at the Taste of Love, we are doing a story, and the story is an ancient story of boys' initiation in this particular tribe around the world. And around the world, at some stage, for thousands and thousands of years, there were tribes in small numbers, and that's all it was. There was no big cities, and they all had their own dialects. In very 100, 200 miles that way, the tribes never even traveled that. They didn't have to, because they had their food, they had a river, and they lived, and they had elders and children and all these things. They had their own rules, and and they got on, and people were naughty. They had their own laws, and so there was like, and the kids were able to grow up and be modelled how men were, and obviously the main predominant things back then was wake up, find food, shelter. And before, at this very start, they were nomads, and they travelled. Everyone travelled because they only travelled because they're trying to find food. And then at some stage, they got so good at finding in shelters that they found a good place and they stayed there. Then they had tribes and they actually lived there because they had everything come to them, and they had a river. They learned that they didn't have to travel all their lives, so they stayed there. Yeah? But so what we tell is the story of boys when they turn in this tribe. When boys come of an age of 13 to 14 years old, it is the time for little boys to be pulled from their beds by masked men in cloaks in the middle of the night and dragged out of the home and disconnected from their mother and taken into the sacred forest for a week, right? And then they come back to the village. They look the same, but they walk different. And it's the sacredness of men's initiation, yeah? So we're reliving this. We've got amazing guys doing it. All the guys from the Freedom Warrior camps, and we got mothers. I got a couple of mothers there with their own sons, and doing that piece with, my partner EJ. She's got girls being. So we're just setting up the village with women gathering food and making baskets, and then the men coming back from a hunting trip, and the boys playing with coconuts and interacting with the elders and learning ways, right? And then all of a sudden, the boys are sleeping, and the tribe get together and they actually have a meeting, right? And the meeting is about the importance. It is time. Our boys are ready to be taken, right? This doesn't happen in our society today. There's no talk of the mum or dad or the uncles and the family. Not in a lot of some cultures. Yeah, yes, I agree. But what I'm saying is that we don't make it important. Our boys just end up turning 13 years old. Before they know it, they're 18 and 21, and then they've left home and they're night clubbing, and there was something missed in their life.
I was just going to mention that as well, that I think that's like, I don't know where I've heard this from, but the thing that pops in my head when you tell that story is that, in the Western culture, something that we miss out on as men is the men's initiation thing. As women still have their menstrual cycle when they're becoming a woman, as men don't really have that anymore. You just come into adulthood. And I think on a genetic level, it's something that we're kind of missing out on.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, women have got this connectiveness of their prefrontal cortex is larger at birth. Everything, their emotions are running rampant and they're connected. Yeah, therefore they naturally grow into women in their womanhood. Men, we don't have the thing. There's nothing that's stopping. Our adolescence just keeps on going. Unless it's nurtured and made different by the modeling of a tribe and other men. This is the revolution of women when the men leave and they're working and that they've got drugs, and when alcohol came in and all the things that took the fathers away from the men of boys, and they left with no responsibility, don't want the responsibility, and the mothers become mum dads. It's been going on for 70 years. Mum dads, the power of the feminine. But the feminine doesn't want to be mum dad. She just wants to surrender and have the masculine there running the thing for her and be, but that's not how it is. So we've got all these boys and men running around the world that have had this. What do we do about it? We just start changing the world one man at a time. And what I'd love to share in this is that my training, the Freedom Warrior training now is for boys amongst the men. So we have 20 men and we have 5 boys, and the boys do the same work on the weekend. they experience the same stuff. There's no special treatment. And what it is they just jump in with the men and they sit in circle. They're asked the same questions. They go through the same thing, and they realize that when they start hearing that men, this 30-year-old guy over there has got this crazy problem that's actually similar to the boys, because the boy doesn't feel heard at home because the parents shut him down, tell him to shut up and this and that. All of a sudden, he's actually able to be heard in a space of men, and his voice is valued and he feels important. Then he starts to share and feel that, whoa. And so the whole weekend is men's initiation for them. It just happens. And so this is a new thing now. This is where I'm going, and it's real passionate to me. And the whole camp it's the same camp, but this is why I'm doing this first show performance at the Love Fest, Taste of Love. And this is just something that I can do with this beautiful program that we have, and the men can be part of it. And it's super powerful. I'm super pumped about it.
It's definitely amazing, because when you really think of it, especially with today's world, and I guess I don't want to call it toxic masculinity of what's happening in the world and that, but the more that we can help men encourage to jump into more of a healthy masculine, is the more that we help society as itself to heal what's going on and to grow as well.
Yes, yeah, most definitely. The men that I've talked about that have come from this weekend, I first did a test. I said, hey guys, if think back, and if there were some boys of 13 years old on the training, how would you have felt doing what you did? And everyone said, oh yeah, really, really good. I would have got so much from having the youth there, someone like that. It would have taken me back to the time when I was stuffing up, and I thought, oh, that was, but it's not true. And so they would have brought up stuff in me so that I can heal that part of me. And then the boys will be the same, like, oh, wow, da-da-da. So at the end of the day, we're men. We're men, they're men. And this is how I feel that I have seen, just men 20, 30, 40, 50 years old, just doing the work together. I think there's that little missing link of 5 more years younger, that piece around the 13 and 15-year-olds that get forgotten. They end up in squatting houses, and this is where I've been. I've been in squatting houses, and I've seen 11-year-olds get pulled out of there, and these kids have got great parents, $1 million houses on the water, and they choose to go and do this thing. And that's the pain. There's the missing link. One of the main missing links to a healthy future for everybody, because, like you said, the toxic masculinity, there's so many variants to it, and it comes in all ages, and we can all heal it on the same level, all together. Be aware of it. It's just the awareness. I believe true healing starts with awareness. If I don't know about something, I'm blind and I have no idea, and I keep doing it.
So true. And until I guess you can't step out of your comfort zone and say experience something like this, as you're saying, it's like when when you bring on to like a 15-year-old or a 14-year-old, and they say something, and they say men's in their 40s, is like, oh, I actually remember that time, that triggers that memory of back then. And then you look at that and it's like, okay, now I can heal that part of myself. And through that conversation, you can come aware of what's happening, or what happened back then. So
and what you just said is, if you're that guy, say if you're we're sitting in a circle and I'm the 15-year-old, and I just said something about me, and then you checked in with, oh, whoa, that's what I did. I see that. Whoa. And then you say, this is the side healing part, is that you say to me, thank you, brother. Thank you for showing me that. And the little kid here who thinks he's just got this problem, he feels, yeah, cool, brother. I'm actually helpful. My shit in my life that I think that I'm in the gutter actually shed some light on a 50-year-old man, and he's like amazed, and he's thanking me for it. So there's the goal. There's so many gold nuggets in the work that we do. Men sitting in front of men. Yeah, so many gold nuggets. So yeah.
100%, man. So yeah, I'll wrap it up on this question, man. What is the legacy you want to create?
Man, like from coming from a background of a drug addict, a decade of using speed, in that time and 5 years after, as a drug addict, this is what happens to their brain. From repetitive use, the emotional maturity of the brain starts to slow down and stops. The empathy, the compassion, love, to a certain extent, depends what your lifestyle is like. So it starts to slow down. Therefore, all your brain wants is to keep repeating the offense, keep recycling, da da da. So coming out of all that, Mitchell, that what you said is, I was just happy to make it to my next birthday. I was actually like, I won't make it to 35. Not that I was thinking, I never had any thoughts of knocking myself off. I didn't have that nature, but I actually didn't have any drive. My drive was for every day, and I've always been a super active, and I'm a doer. I make shit happen all my life, right? But as far as thinking a year ahead, when I was in those years, it was like, I'll just make the most of this because I won't probably be around. I'll do something and it'll be bad. And so that went on for like years and years and years. And then I started realizing, oh, wow, yeah, I'll plan for 3 years and do this the next 3 years. And it was never me. And so that was my brain coming back into, back on track and having emotional feelings, my emotional maturity accelerated and caught up with my age, right? Because say if I was 35, my emotional intelligence back then would have been 25. And then as I got to 40, it started to catch up to 38. And I imagine, and I'm 49 now, so I imagine I feel good and all these things. So because I practice it and I hang around with people that are the same, and I share my beliefs, and that's really healthy for my emotional intelligence. So when you say that to me now, with knowing that about me, is that a legacy would be for people just to be carrying on the work that I'm doing now, and and to be an ancestor and look down and have people doing what makes them feel good, and having the same beliefs and values that I had and I have, and as an ancestor, I'll be able to drop little gold nuggets on their heads and give them great ideas. So we're always a part of it, and it's going to be great. So I think to answer it really quickly, I'd love to leave behind my beliefs and values and have them followed by people who are passionate about those beliefs and values. Yeah, which are create community.
Yeah, and I'm gonna have to say I can definitely see it happening.
Yeah.
A lot of those values are definitely going to get passed on for many generations to come. And the work you're doing is amazing, and is something that is much needed in today's society. So I'd like to thank you very much for doing what you do, and I appreciate you for coming on the show, man.
Yeah, appreciate you as well. And Mitchell, these beliefs and values have been around for millions of years, and we forget. It's something that people forget. We forget, and people like you and me come along, and we just tweak things and start to believe them ourselves, and then just tweak everything.
Yeah, 100% resonate with that.
Yeah, great work, brother.
Yeah, thank you, and you too. And thanks again for coming on.
Cool, man. All right, see you later.
All right, cheers for tuning in today's podcast, guys. make sure you give it a like, comment, tell me what you think of it, etc, etc. And then also, if you think a friend will value from it, please share it with them. And also, before I let you go, I also have my Re-Engineer Your Mindset program, so you can check that out at my website, which I'll link below. And also, I will have a mini course on breaking patterns out as well, so that will be all in the link below and on my website. But cheers for tuning in today, guys.